this train is sort of moving, and I think if you're sort of choosing to not jump on, you are getting outrun here. I think it's much better to be part of the steering committee of that train. We recently worked with Jensen at NVIDIA, and he was talking about getting on the train. Once you're on the train, it doesn't move that fast because you're on the train. So he's talking about the relativism of change, in an Einsteinian context. But he said also, once you're on the train, it doesn't seem to be moving that fast. And by the way, he likes the train because he's steering it. So that was kind of funny as well. But he's a very charming guy in that sense. I think for ethics, there are big questions, but I don't really think that we're touching on the real ethics when we're talking about what pictures comes up. Those are when you generate a picture, those are easy fixes, right? That we can that we can steer. That's not the big issue here. I think there are more issues related to kind of when you do a lot of synthetic data and you kind of reshape data in a new way,
Yep.
and you learn from that and you build on kind of synthetic data. I think that's gonna
You have
be
accuracy, you
more,
have bias, you have all kinds of
yeah.
flaws
But
you can introduce into the data set.
but for now though, it's learning on data that we provide, so it's
Yeah.
actually learning from the data that we provide. And if that's biased, maybe we learn something about ourselves in that sense. I did discuss this on kind of more philosophical level, and the idea of for machines, the bits and bytes comes first, and then the decision. There is no morals in there, but and he feels that the morals is where we start. We start with the framework and kind of the categorization, and then we dive into the. I don't think we're that different from machines, actually. I think just it's a construct. I think we're just finding ourselves in that kind of heliocentric versus non-heliocentric debate again. And what role do we play in the future? I think we'll find our feet quite nicely. So
Yeah.
I'm not too worried about it. I'm glad somebody's bringing it up though, because it is important. But I'm personally not super worried about the ethics here.
Well, for what it's worth, I I, I love I love that technology can catalyze what I think are really important conversations and questions, right? Like for me, one of my favorites right now to watch and track is the notion of copyright in a world of generative AI.
Right.
Right. Like, I actually think that's really important. And there's some deeply kind of philosophical second order questions that are tied up into it. Right. Like, are machines held to the same learning standards and output standards that humans are, or vice versa? So I love that it forces these. But I guess I share what I think is the view that you're articulating, right? Which is
Yeah.
that these are important conversations, but we just need to work through them rather than resisting, right? We need to sort of embrace them and figure it out, and it'll probably be okay.
But every author has read a book. So
That's
what's different from a machine doing that, right? Like, I think U2 is singing every artist is a thief, and the point being is that we get inspiration from other sources as well.
and I
So
think, for what it's like, I agree with you, but I don't think Jason Kalkanis would agree with you, and I definitely don't think all of the media institutions like the New York Times and a few others suing OpenAI agree with you. And I think
sure,
I find that, like, that kernel of like what's actually going on here to be really interesting, because are we really going to say that a machine learning should be held to the same standard as a human? And then, are they human? You can get super deep really quickly here.
yeah, but I think it's fine to pay for content, right? I'm just saying, like there is a path somewhere and a balance somewhere where it makes sure that the information is accessible, as long as there's some kind of a way to pay for it. But I totally understand that New York Times wants to get paid for their work. That's perfectly fine. Uh, but I'm also saying, like, we shouldn't. I think um, Adobe has their policy is basically, once it's machine learned, you get no, machine generated image, you get a thumbprint saying this is
Yeah.
machine generated. Once you change a pixel, it now belongs to a human. Out of all the pixels there, one pixel is where they say, okay, now it is owned by somebody. That's where they put the boundary. We just have to find those boundaries, really. But the thing is that we've edited photos before, and like there was an article
Absolutely.
recently about
I was doing it in fifth grade.
some documentary that had an artificial intelligence changed image, but those were done by humans using Photoshop before. What's the difference? I mean, I just don't. Yeah, it might be too light, but it's fine.
No, I mean, I think fundamentally, like at your core, I completely agree with you. But I think it's going to cause such deep changes in how people think about the value of
Right.
the work that's being used to do training, the work that's being created.
But but but
I enjoy that.
here's an alternative to this. I'm sorry, I get engaged as
Yeah,
well. This is why I
yeah.
say,
Oh,
it's not my thing. But if you have, let's say, health data, right, and that data has some personal information that makes it so that somebody could potentially be identified. You take out the name, take out all the identifiable data, but just from patterns, you could figure out somebody who they are. Okay, so now you shouldn't train um, an AI algorithm to build new medicines that could save 1,000 lives, right? Because this is like I think there's another side to this where the benefits also should be taken into consideration when you're saying, oh,
yep.
we shouldn't be doing this because of ethics. I think, anyway, that's
Well, and there are people who are going to take who not only are going to but are taking that position sometimes in full understanding of the consequences, right? There are people who are taking the position that um, we need to preserve to the limit of time the value of written works created by humans, right? When you can look the at technology and you can sort of say, wow, like it kind of seems like we're not that far away from a world of unlimited, freely created content, which almost inherently has no value because of constraint. It may have value for lots of other reasons, but not because of constraint. And you could see a world where that destroys the value of a lot of authors' outputs. And there's people who are going to be like, I don't want that world.
Sure, but we've had this before, right? Like, so when you had the dials, you had the switchboard
Yep.
in the US. I think about 2% of the US population was hired at do switchboards, and suddenly the dial came in.
Textile
Um,
production, like,
yeah,
agriculture, it's happened 1,000 times.
yeah, and I think also, I mean, to me, it's more the questions for the corporate side of it is that once your salespeople can do the job they do 300% more efficient, what do they do with the rest of their time, right?
Yeah.
I think that's a question we need to ask us as well. But I think, yeah, I don't know. I think there's upsides that we need to take into that consideration as well.
Well, for what it's worth, I definitely take the relatively optimistic view that once someone is 300% more efficient, that means they can go do lots of other productive things,
Yeah,
whether it's
like for
300
instance,
times as much stuff or who knows what.
but
Honestly, I think we don't
yeah,
know. Like, we don't know what
yeah,
people.
yeah, yeah. I know. I just have too many opinions on this, right?
Yeah, but that's the magic, because like you live in a world where you get to immerse yourself in the art of what's possible and people that are pushing the cutting edge and imagine how this plays out. I think that's a world that it's really important to actually bring to more people that are maybe feeling lost, right, in the world of rapid
It,
change,
it,
like who frankly are watching the train go zipping by and they're like, I don't know how to jump on.